Lockdown Hero by Jenny Torniainen. Read by Joy Gerken.
Mum, can I play games on your phone?
Have you finished all your schoolwork, Danny?
No.
Not exactly true. On top of regular lessons, Mrs. Vincent sends through stupid activities. Complete a gratitude journal, help around the house, do a kind deed. Schoolwork online is boring, even more boring than real school, and that's saying something. Mum squidges the mop against the bucket. Well, go into the garden and play then. You're in my way. Ever since she lost her job selling houses, Danny's mum's new hobby, besides nagging about schoolwork, is cleaning. Dad's more fun, but for the last 2 days he's been upstairs on his computer. He doesn't even come down for meals, and Mum sleeps on the sofa like they've had a row. I don't like the garden. The old house in Benfleet had a garden with places to hide and a tree with a swing on it. This new garden isn't even a garden, just concrete slabs with nasty weeds that look like aliens growing from its cracks. Do you ever stop whinging, Danny?
But I'm bored. I want to go out. Out.
Can't we go to Basildon or go to the country park? Even Tesco's would be something. Danny, it's only been a week. Move, love. I want to get behind there. It isn't fair. His friends have brothers and sisters. David has his granddad, who talks about the old days non-stop. But even that's something. Then he has an idea.
Mum?
What now, Danny?
Do you think the old lady next door is okay on her own?
Mum sprays some bleach. Squirt! Squirt! Why don't you write her a letter and ask? Letters are a waste of paper.
Can't I just call or text her?
I don't know her number, and a letter is nicer, more personal. Danny goes upstairs, stamping his feet. Thump! Thump! The computer is on in his bedroom, and the curtains are closed. Each day his teacher sends more stuff, mountains of homework. At school, lessons where they got to use the computers were the most fun, but now Danny can't be bothered. Don't the teachers see that it's pointless trying to make kids work? Danny checks to see what's happening on Fortnite. David and Batu have invited him to a game. Since lockdown, he can play whenever he wants. Funny how the fun things seem less fun when you can do them whenever. At 8 o'clock, the clapping starts. Clark joins in by woofing. Woof, woof, woof. Mums explain they're clapping to say thank you to the doctors and nurses because they are heroes, which sounds a bit silly as Danny doesn't think the doctors and nurses will hear. He joins in anyway because it's fun to see neighbours' heads poking out of their windows. His room overlooks the yard, and down below is the badminton net Dad put up using old tights. Daddy sticks his head right out to see if the old lady joins in. Her house isn't even next door. It's just one big house that's been cut in two and given 2 doors. The only time he hears her make any noise is at 6 o'clock with the BBC News, which is when she turns it up really loud. Mum reckons she's a bit deaf. Danny leans out a bit further. He can see other houses with their cut-in-half gardens. Psst! If she's deaf, She won't hear that, especially with all the clapping. He runs back downstairs. Mum's washing up the dishes. Mum! What now?
What's the old lady called, the one next door?
I don't know, Danny. Go and brush your teeth. At night he can't sleep for thinking how bored he would be if he was on his own like the old lady. Worse than bored. Then, what if she's got the virus and is sick and alone? What if she's dead and no one's realised? The following morning he tidies his desk. There, that'll make Mum happy. Under a pile of books is the worksheet his teacher set for homework. Childhood during the Second World War. Why do adults love to talk about the war so much? He checks his messages. Danny, I'm still waiting for your homework. Please. Can you let me know how you're getting on? Mrs. Vincent has written. There's a ton of new work, words everywhere, videos, worksheets, true or false questions, quizzes. It's not fair. Having all this work to do, why can't teachers give everyone a break? The date on the history homework was last week. Oops! He tears a page out of his maths notebook. Anything to avoid doing homework.
Dear lady next door, I'm Danny. I'm 10, but I will be 11 next month. Mum said to write you a letter to check you are okay. I heard COVID is bad for old people. I hope you are not too bored or lonely in lockdown. Today, me and my friends sent each other selfies of us pulling faces. Then I played badminton on my own. But Clock, our dog, ate the shuttlecock. I need to do schoolwork, but I'd rather play on my computer. That's all for now. Danny from next door. He takes the letter downstairs to show Mum, but she isn't there. Through the front door window there's a movement. What's she doing in the car? When she comes back in, her face is all splodgy. Did the interview go badly, Mum? Before Dad started hiding in his room, Danny heard him and Mum practicing for her next interview. Next Tuesday. Danny asked what that meant, and Mum said it was a bit like an exam, but you have to speak. Everything's cancelled, Danny. Mum blew her nose, then went to the bathroom to wash her hands. Can't they do it online like we do at school? No one is buying houses at the moment, Danny. They don't need people. He wants to ask why Dad doesn't come downstairs, but her face says this isn't the right moment. He shows her the letter. How do I get it to her? Post it through her letterbox, silly. Are you keeping on top of your homework? Danny's already slipped out of the front door. When do you think she'll reply? It's spaghetti on toast again, the worst.
Food during lockdown is almost as boring as online school. She might not reply. She's very old. Have you washed your hands, Danny?
With soap? Can I go and ring her doorbell so she knows there's a letter?
You leave her be, Danny. Are you up to date with your schoolwork? Danny nods. It's almost true, sort of. Clark goes bonkers the next day, yapping and wagging his tail at the door. He is bored of lockdown too. Danny, there's a letter for you. He's downstairs in an instant. The envelope is heavy. He opens it and unfolds the thick paper inside. I can't read it. The writing's all weird. Mum puts down her cloth and washes her hands. She frowns a bit, then points at the spidery squiggles.
Dear Danny, I was thrilled to receive your lovely letter today, and I do hope you are not too anxious. This is really an extraordinary historical moment to be living through, and I can honestly say that in all my 91 years I have never seen anything like it. The world around us is changing so fast. I remember seeing similar changes as a child when I was your age, living through the Second World War. Although this is about the only comparison I can make between that time and this. I have a niece and nephew, but they are grown up and live a long way away, so they can't come and visit. Ever since I received that letter from the government telling me to stay at home because I was a vulnerable person, they refused to come and visit. I told them to come over anyway. What do I care if I fall off my perch at this ripe old age? It seems they are too worried about the risks a visit might have on my health. Your message really made my day. I can't say I know what a selfie is. There are lots of things that I find I don't know, especially with all those thingamabobs and gadgets you have these days. Sorry, my handwriting is hard to read. These old hands aren't what they once were. Eileen from next door.
He asks if they can go and visit her, but Mum says it's not safe in hospitals. Your school emailed me this morning. What's this about you handing in your history homework late? Your teacher says you haven't been online for 2 whole days. His chin wobbles. The tears come from nowhere, tickling his face. Danny, love, are you okay? It's not little tears. He's sobbing like a silly little baby. Mum wraps him up in her arms. I'm sorry, love. I've got a lot on my mind too. She kisses his head. Can't you call the hospital and see if she's okay? Hospital staff are run off their feet. Besides, she's not a relative, so I've got no right to ask for information about her. Tell you what, why don't you write her a get well soon card and post it to the hospital? The postman can deliver it. Danny turns to go back upstairs. Danny, she calls out. He turns. The homework, I'm trusting you to get on with it. I'm here to help if you need me. Okay? Danny nods. He writes a long letter and posts it that day. Over the next 3 weeks, he writes 15 more letters, including a long one where he asks some questions about life in the war. But actually, he's looked a lot of that stuff up. It's kind of cool to learn what children went through. It's also very sad, a lot sadder than what is happening right now. If he's honest, Danny doesn't mention to Eileen about falling behind with homework. He promises to himself to work extra hard so that when she's better, he can tell her and that she'll be proud. Mum says that the postman will be charging overtime, whatever that means. On the 14th day, Mum calls him downstairs. Danny, we need to talk. Her face is creased like an old shirt. He hopes it's not about homework again. He's been trying harder, but his brain keeps thinking about other things. It's about Eileen. Mum says once he's sat down, it's been 2 weeks, Danny. It doesn't look good. She was old and very frail. You need to prepare yourself. Danny feels like it's him who's swallowed the shuttlecock. A letter arrives and Clark goes wild, yapping and whining. Woof, woof, woof. He rushes downstairs. Mum's already at the door with an envelope in her hand. Her face looks funny. She pats the sofa beside her. It's from the NHS. Sit down. What's the NHS? The National Health Service. The the people we clap at 8 o'clock. Maybe they want to ask you to stop pestering them with all those letters. But why? Oh, Danny. Mum strokes his hair, and he knows what that means. A tear runs down to the tip of his nose. Can you open it? Dad comes downstairs. He looks older. He gives Danny a big hug and swings him around like usual. Dad then sits on the other side of him and Mum and says, "What you did for that old lady was the nicest thing, son. You'll always know that she felt less alone because of you." Mum unfolds the piece of paper. It isn't a letter, but a black and white printed photo of the old lady from next door in a chair. She is smiling, a big wrinkly smile. Her face looks like a balloon that's run out of puff. In the picture she's holding a piece of paper with a message on it. "Dear Danny, the nurse helped me take my first selfie. I'm much better and that virus didn't get me this time. They say I'll be home to celebrate VE Day, the day when we celebrate the end of the Second World War. Gosh, it must be the 75th anniversary this year. Mom, can I make a special welcome home sign for Eileen and hang it in our window?" She would love that, I'm sure. "I'll help you if you like." "But don't you have lots of things to do?" This is more important. Mum squeezes Danny close. That afternoon, Danny submits his history project on World War II, and in the evening he tells Mum and Dad how Mrs. Vincent gave him 90%. Then he thanks Mum for the dinner of beans and waffles. "My pleasure, love." On the 8th of May, the ambulance brings Eileen home. There are balloons and signs all over the driveway. There's no way she could miss it. After drying up, he stands at his bedroom window. That afternoon, there's a special 3 o'clock clapping for all the heroes. He claps Mum for her cooking and cleaning. Dad also works so hard and isn't sick anymore. Mrs. Vincent for all the online work. Whoever it was who brought that little boy food. And he claps the war veterans Eileen told him about in her letters. But most of all, he claps the doctors and nurses who saved Eileen and brought her home. Someone in the house across the way starts singing with a wobbly voice, and soon more people join in. What are they singing, Mum? It's a song called "We'll Meet Again." Danny nods. "Oh yes, I know this one." Once the singing's done, he goes up to his room and finishes the rest of his homework, then goes to play Fortnite with Batu and David and wins. Being a lockdown hero really isn't so tough after all. The end.